This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so welcome back. In our previous session, we looked into the foundational aspects of business analysis, business analyst, and stakeholders. Now let's try to understand the steps involved in a typical IT project. Okay, so because that forms the bedrock for our ITBA role. Let's take an example to make things easy to understand and also make it a little relatable. So consider the project required to come up with a food delivery app. Think of it like your popular platform like a Zomato or a Swiggy or a Uber Eats. So consider a situation where there is no food delivery app in the market, and your business team which is there that has come up with this amazing idea that we can uh, launch a mobile app which will allow customers to book or order food items online. Okay, so here in this relatable scenario, the business team identifies a challenge. And what is the challenge? The challenge is the customers who wish to order restaurant food but prefer to be at the comfort of their home. And what's the solution? Solution is an online avenue for these customers to order food. Now let's look into the stages that you know bring about this change from idea into reality. First of all, where does it begin? It begins at the topmost section here, the planning phase. Okay, so first of all, the business team outlines the problem and envisions a solution. Okay, so this forms the way for the business analysis process. First, the planning happens, like how, what should be done, etc. The next step is about the as is scenario, which is nothing but as is represents the current scenario. To be means the to be state, the final state that you want to achieve at the end of this project, execution. So as this scenario here is about exploring the current state of affairs. In our example, it is about customers physically visiting the restaurant to purchase the food. That's what is the familiar process. Now, what if we could offer a more streamlined solution? That would be your to be scenario. Okay, which is the ideal state where imagine customer using an app to order food, which is quite different from the traditional process. While this example is to simplify the concept, each state, each step can actually have a lot many details. For example, the to be scenario would involve downloading the app, installing it, account creation, item selection, adding some add-ons, payment methods. All these, micro elements contribute to the bigger picture of the to be scenario. After having this understanding of as is and to be, then you need to do a sort of a gap analysis, okay, which is nothing but trying to understand the difference between the current state and the to be state. Okay, this is important to understand what is the gap in between these two and have a holistic view of the transformation that is required to be done. Till here, if you see the first planning, then as is to be scenario and the gap analysis, these are purely business side of the project, which means none of the developers or testers or project manager or business analyst may not be involved in these three steps at all. Sometimes it is possible that a BA can get into to be scenario gap analysis, but a usual scenario is all of these things would have already been done before a project gets assigned to an IT team. Okay. Now coming to the requirements gathering. Now that is something which is very important for us as a business analyst person. Okay. So what happens in this requirement gathering is it's a pivotal step which involves close collaboration with your stakeholders. So as a ITBA, what you do is you dive deep into the stakeholder interactions, capture their needs and expectations. And here, this is very crucial because the devil is in the detail. The more you start exploring the to be scenario, the more you get to know the challenges that are there and the more information that you need to grab and you need to work out. So it could be like you might come across a situation where you think, okay, this particular requirement, business requirement, may or may not be feasible, or there could be some regulatory constraints, or there could be some priority levels that have to be set. A lot many things like that. So all of those things come in your requirements gathering phase. So this is the phase where you are translating the ideas into something which can be, which is sort of actionable. Okay. That's what your requirement gathering is all about. Once you get into it, you can come across a scenario where the business objective which is there, it can be delivered in multiple ways. For example, in our same food delivery app, while business team might have thought, okay, mobile app, launching a mobile app is the ideal thing that we should do. There is a possibility of doing it in a different way. For example, instead of a mobile app, a website may serve the same purpose, right? That is it. Or to make it much more simpler, maybe a revised call center service itself can, cater to the customer's requirements, where customer will just call and say, this is what I need, and then, the things get sorted. So these all multiple solutions that are there. As a BA, you would be looking into these multiple options, dissecting those, presenting the pros and cons of each of these options, and then help the business team to decide which is the most optimal route to be taken. Okay, that's about your multiple solutions. And then what happens is, once the business team has finalized that, okay, this is what we need, the next step would be to get that finer details again within that specific solution. For example, even when we say a mobile app, within the mobile app, do you want to launch it only on Android, or you want to launch it on iOS also? That could be one question. Or it could be about, do you want to launch it in a pilot phase with these set of requirements, or you want to broaden up and spend more time and have more features in the initial launch itself? Or it could be about a little bit more details into it, could be about what could be the login preferences, or what could be the different options that you want to provide customer to make the payment. All of these nuances which will be part of your project scope, that will be coming in your fifth step, which is defining the scope using the optimum solution. Okay, this one. After having done all of these things comes the sign off step, which is nothing but, all these while as a BA you have interacted with the stakeholders and understood their requirements, the pain points, uh, suggested the probable solutions, and then finalized on one particular part of it and defined end to end of that particular solution. Now, what's the guarantee that what you have understood till now is exactly same as what the stakeholders want? Because there is always a possibility of a gap. Just diverging from our example, to just give you another example, think of it like, okay, you have gone to a movie with a set of your friends, five of you. Now, after having watched the movie, if each one of you is supposed to summarize about what you have seen the movie, the plot of the movie, if you have to summarize, it's very much possible that each of you, if the 5 pages of summary of each of you is put side by side and looked into, there is a lot of difference in what you have written. Why is it so? Because the movie might be the same, but the way you interpret it, the way you look at it, what you seem to be focusing upon could be totally different from the other person, right? Here, in summarizing, if there's a difference, that works, not a problem. But when you talk about business requirements, you need to be very clear that you are going to deliver what the business requires, right? So that is where getting a due approval on the business requirements, even before getting the implementation done, becomes very important. Okay, and that is what happens in this sign off process. Okay, so you get the sign off from the stakeholders on what you have documented in the form of business requirements, and then take it over to the technical team. Okay, so Till this point of step, you have not yet involved any of your technical team members. Any developer tester has not yet been included in the discussions. Now what happens is the next step, which is the software document preparation, which is nothing but splitting your business requirements into technical requirements, architecture solution required for it, the DevOps requirements, the servers, and all those stuff will come over here. Along with it, also the test case preparation. Those who are already working in IT projects may be aware of what test case is. For others, a test case is nothing but you are deciding the set of terms and conditions that you want to apply on the solution which has been developed, and then certify that yes, this is really meeting the business requirements or not. Okay. To do that testing process, you will use these test cases as the inputs. We will look into how a test case is created, what would be part of it at a later point of time. Okay, but this test case preparation is one crucial step here. And of course, as a BA, you would be sharing all the understanding that you have, and you first share the documentation that you have created, which has been signed off, and then you conduct some walkthrough sessions for the technical team so that they can get a clear understanding on what is supposed to be delivered. And then, of course, the development, the testing, all of those things take place. And once that is done, there'll be a pilot launch, then there'll be a full customer release, and you start monitoring how the solution is being used by the pilot users and what sort of issues are coming up, and were these issues part of what was already documented or something completely new which was not thought of before. All of these things will be part of your verification of the solution. And once it is totally launched for the entire set of end users to use, then you might have to still spend a couple of months in understanding how the usage is happening, what could be done to make it a little bit more customer friendly, and making those tweaks in the final solution, and doing some patch releases and all those stuff. So typically, I'm not saying this is the exact way, but typically most of the projects follow this particular process. Now, some of you may have a question like, you may say that this is something similar to what happens in waterfall methodology. Is this the same which happens in Agile also? So let me clarify that point. So the sequence will still hold true for your Agile projects also. What is difference is Agile introduces the iterative cycles. So you don't spend a major chunk of your initial part of your project into requirements itself. Rather, you break those requirements into smaller chunks and focus on developing, testing, releasing that small change. Then focus on the next set of changes, develop, test, and release, and so on and so forth. Okay, but the sequence still remains the same. Okay, and in your role as an ITBA, you need to be dynamic. Okay, so your insights help in taking the project forward, bridging the business aspirations with the technical possibilities. Okay, so now this is in short what happens in a typical IT project. Now I hope things are clear. Of course, if anything needs a little bit more clarity and all, uh, as I had mentioned initially, you can make a note of all those points, and we can discuss about it whenever we have the one-to-one interaction with you. Okay, so we'll stop here for now. Thanks, everyone.